Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas podcast from still the aforementioned Chase Thomas coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining from Saturday Down South, and let me check my notes here and check the video feed. I think Ethan Stone has an allegiance to the Chicago Bears. Ethan, good evening, sir. How are you?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'm doing great, especially after a good draft from the Chicago Bears. My spirits are high. I'm feeling good. NBA on the TV and ready to talk some Vols.
I mean, this is the most optimistic Bears fans have felt in a long time. Like the vibes, I mean, for nearly my entire life outside of some brief Jay Cutler and Kyle Orton years, like it's been pretty dark.
I think I'm ready to say this is the most excited I've been for a season ever.
I guess we throw the Rex Grossman in, but that era was so short.
I've been this excited for a season because we have a quarterback that can throw the football forward. that's a first for me. Apart from like 1 year Jay Cutler and maybe rookie season Mitch Trubisky, maybe. That's all I got.
Goodness gracious. Also here, Rocky Top Insider's own Ryan Shepard, no Tennessee Titans allegiant. I was surprised. I thought you would be a little bit more fired up. You got a QB1 now. I thought you'd be feeling a little bit better to show some pride here for the Titans and what they did over the weekend, but I guess not.
I'm pretty fired up. I don't have any Titans gear on, though. I got some navy blue, some Titans blue on. I will say, Ethan, I don't know. One thing that I worry about with the Bears and their general manager, I guess front office as a whole, do they know that there's one bowl?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I couldn't. That's a great question because a lot of dudes, and I don't know, they couldn't quite figure it out last year. So adding Luther Burden, who is a very similar player to DJ Moore, I don't know. We'll see how it works out, but I have trust in Ben Johnson. I have trust that the offense will figure itself out for the first time and since rookie season Mitch Trubisky.
Let him enjoy things, Ryan Schumpert. He has the most amount of optimism in a long time. Let him enjoy this before that 1-3 start, and it's like, like, Chicagoing.
We definitely do need more offensive linemen.
Also, I was talking with Matt about this last night, but Luther Burt or Dominic Lovett goes late last round. Maybe he should have just stayed at Mizzou. Things are already pretty good. He had a good final year, and he goes to Georgia and falls off. Like, obviously, all those guys getting drafted, but draft stock went way down. The grass is not always greener. That's something we're seeing now more and more is, like, some guys, like, hey, if you're in a good spot, like, you can just stay there and still get drafted. There's a lot of opportunities where it's like, especially going conference to conference, where it's like, I don't know, you might just, if you're cooking at your Power 4 school, maybe just stay there. Because you look at some of these stories, it doesn't matter. And some guys like Walter Nolan, it didn't affect him. He goes still top 15, going from Texas A&M to Ole Miss. But then you have the stories like Dominic Lovett, where, I don't know, that was something I was tracking, was just the guys who made what they thought was a step up, in that final loss. And it's like, man, maybe you should have just stayed at the last stop where it was pretty good.
One to add to like that, not in football, but Denzel Aberdeen with Florida. What in the world are you doing, brother? Like, yeah. Florida needs guys. You'd probably start for him next year, and I doubt he starts.
The lead guard. Lead guard.
Yeah, I doubt he starts for Kentucky's.
He's number one. The transfer portal sucks. Example of this offseason. Homegrown kid, big part of the national championship team, was going to step up and be the number one guard at least, with a really good front court returning next year. Portals for more money.
It's crazy. It's really wild. I mean, it just completely gives up a starting position. This is not a Florida podcast, but still.
Well, speaking of the portal here, Ryan Schumpert, your dream close as the transfer portal closed here for the men and women's side of things here in the transfer portal, also in football. So all of it's done, hopefully, but there's still it's not all done because there's still a bunch of people just sitting in the portal, and we'll see how those final couple spots fill up here. But when you look at the couple of spots left for Tennessee, do you think, one, they're going to be able to manifest a good close here to your liking? And what is your ideal close to the portal for Tennessee?
Yeah, I think so. I think Amari Abram, the transfer guard from Louisiana Tech, is target number one at this point in time. And he visited Tennessee here on Monday, and I think Tennessee's in a good spot for him leaving that visit. So, we'll see what he ends up doing. But I think he's, it's obviously all, what's the word I'm looking for? Relative. He's the fourth shooting guard they've gotten to. So he's not Ronnie Rice or Isaac McNeely. But when you look at what is out there, a guy that averaged about 12.5 points, hit 66 threes on 37% shooting from the field, is a really good perimeter defender. It's one of the best perimeter defenders in the Conference USA last year. Can play a little bit of combo guard. He's a little bit of a Swiss Army knife in that he can do a lot of different things on the basketball court. Played in the SEC at Ole Miss as a freshman and had a good season at Ole Miss. Ended up at Louisiana Tech after a really bad sophomore season at Georgia Tech. That was just kind of, I think, a bad fit from what some people have told me. So I think he's, number one. And look, I think for me, it's just like because of shooting guard, because of the guys they've missed on, I think it's just what I would almost do is just be throwing as many darts at the dartboard, I guess, as possible. Ricky's Passmore, I know one of the On3 guys mentioned his name again, and he'd been connected to Tennessee a little bit earlier in the cycle, and there was a visit scheduled at one point, and then Tennessee kind of canceled that, but he still hasn't done anything, and I don't think he fits as much as what Tennessee needs, just because he's not a very good shooter, and Tennessee needs shooting from that 2 spot. But just from where Tennessee's at, I like the idea of, all right, let's go get as many options, as many guys as possible. And Passmore was, a big top 50 recruit who went to Kansas out of high school and, just didn't play his freshman year. So I do think is a talented player. So, I'd maybe say those 2 guys when it comes to portal, just from guys that I think are semi-realistic. I know Travis Reed the Kentucky transfer was mentioned. I would probably rather have Travis Reed than Ricky's Passmore because of the shooting. But it doesn't seem like Tennessee's really gone much further down that path. And at the same time, like one of the things you like about Perry is the fact that he can play some point guard. But Tennessee would get that with Abram too. So maybe that's not quite as important. So I'll say Abram and Passmore from a semi-realistic possibility of something that can happen. And just trying to get a couple shooting guards and hoping it works out.
So when you look at Abram and you look at Passmore and you look at what's the French kid's last name?
Massamba.
And we'll get to him here in a second. And then you mentioned Perry. I mean, Perry feels like the biggest long shot of the list and feels like because he's got a lot of schools he's still seeing, right? And it just might be one of those things where you can't wait on Perry. Like he's just someone like because Tennessee's got to nail down somebody here in this starting 2 spot because Semisonic's closing time is blasting all throughout East Tennessee here, and it's like we gotta make sure we close really strong and just get somebody good, or it's just somebody to be that number 2 because we're all over the place there. Darius Adams, McNeely, Rodney Rice, Abram, this will be his 4th school, right, in 4 years.
Yep.
So you just kind of want to, okay. And then the kid from Oklahoma, was it Darius Miles? Duke Miles. And you're like, what are we doing? We're all over the place. Like we got to close on this final one. You got the big dogs like Nate Ament and everybody. But to me, I just look at it. I'm like, I don't really, at this point, I'm just like, just add a solid piece here at the 2. And then an upside. I need a Vescovy. Like, that's what this is really missing. That's what this roster, the French part of it is, I'm very excited because they just need someone and to fill that role because I missed it. Because that was a great buzz last year. Like, oh, are they going to find somebody late in the process? Are they going to find their next Vescovy? I love it because who's the team that brought in 3? Is it Illinois? Who has 3 different, what country are they from that they brought in? 3 different foreign players from the same country, and I forgot where it is.
I know what you're talking
Eastern
about.
Europe, I think, but I don't know what country it is.
Yeah, but they're 3. They're all from the same country, and I think 2 of them are brothers, because one of the Arkansas kids, it's his brother.
Big Z.
Yeah.
Big Z's brother.
So they're both there. So I cannot remember off the top of my head.
Maybe Croatia?
I'm looking at the moment.
I'm not sure off the top of my head, but either way, when you look at all of it, do you feel that it's going to be a strong close and Vol fans are going to ultimately be pretty happy with what things look like at the tail end of this, Ryan?
Yeah, I guess generally so. I mean, it kind of depends on what your expectations are. Look, I think you could go down. This is maybe a conversation for a podcast or 2 later when we everything is set in stone, but I think if you're grading what Tennessee has done in this offseason, I think you would give them a really high grade at point guard. You would give them a really high grade in the front court and bringing everybody back and getting Jalen Carey. You'd give them a really high grade at wing for getting Nate Ament. And then right now, they've just whiffed on 3 guys at shooting guard. So I don't think you're going to get one of anybody at this point that matches what you did at those other spots. Like all those would be some variance of A as far as a grade. I don't think they're going to get an A at this point. But given what is out there and somebody who's not Tennessee related, so maybe a little less biased here, said this is a bad year to be looking for a shooting guard in the portal because there's just not a ton of good ones out there, which I think is why you've seen some of the value for a guy like Rodney Rice be so high and Tennessee not be willing to pay, his asking price. So I think when you consider all of that, I think they're going to be able to put something together that's competent and is not like you leave the first part. I don't think you'll leave the roster building part of the offseason and just be like, holy crap, they're screwed at the 2 spot. I think it's going to remain to be a question mark, and it's certainly not going to be the strength of the team. But I think they'll land one guy or multiple guys where you feel like, all right, you got some competent players here. You got some guys that aren't going to be go-to scorers, but are starting caliber players, guys that can play 20 minutes a game. And I kind of know my point a minute ago. I think you'll probably end up with Tennessee getting a couple guys to where you feel like, all right, you don't need everybody that you ended up landing to hit. You just need a couple guys to be solid, and you hope everybody else around them is good enough to kind of lift them up, and that weakness on the roster theoretically not being crippling by any means.
I like it. Ethan Stone, when you look at the Frenchman, he's long, he's 6'5". It's just like a barn staple, man. It's just everyone's got to be 6'5" and above outside of Zakai. Like it's just everybody else has to be 6'5" and above, and then we'll have some guys who.
Something I was going to add just quickly on this dude's height. Yeah. Different heights everywhere you look for.
Really?
I've seen variation of like 6'4", maybe even 6'3" to like 6'6". Yep. I was looking at his page on his European club team, and it's got his height listed in centimeters. So I was doing, running the numbers, inches to centimeters, and then figuring out what that is in feet. So that was a very funny moment and a very long.
Look at metric system Schumpert logging into the chat.
But according to his, again, I think it's AC Monaco, his club team, 6'4.3". What that exactly would be, but 6'4" is what
but I'll take it. 6'4", 6'5". Now, if it was like 6'2" versus 6'5", then you're like,
It's not a D-Stone situation where he was listed at 6'8", and then he showed up on campus and he was 6'6". That's a dude they were expecting to play power forward.
Yeah, that's a big difference. Like, you don't think it's a big difference, but 6'8", 6'10". I mean, 6'8", 6'10" is a big difference. Yep. Where I don't think there's a big difference, like 6'10", 7 foot. Like, that's about the same. Like I've seen like there's some 6'10" guys. It's kind of like one of those things that many people do forget that 5'10" and 6 feet are one and the same, and it's one of those common things I've seen in American culture that we haven't all accepted as a society. Is that like,
Europeans have accepted it?
Yeah, and that's part of the reason. Like they do a lot right. Many European countries have it right when it comes to associating height and relative height is really we should really be at this point in the United States here in the middle of 2025. So if it's like you're 5'10", you should be able to say you're 6 feet, and we all have a mutual understanding. It's basically true. It's basically the same. And anyway, back to Ethan Stone here on the Frenchman part of this, but also the Abram part of this. From he likes techs, like Louisiana Tech, Georgia Tech, big tech guy, Mr. Abram. And you look at what he's been doing here, but what do you make of the fit for him, and also what the Vols might get in the Frenchman?
Yeah, I'll start with Abram. I echo most of I think what Ryan said, that at the end of the day, it's not going to be an A+. It's not going to be a home run hit to get Abram starting at the 2, or at the very least playing a lot of minutes at the 2, as he's, assuming he can commit to Tennessee, and he ends up picking Tennessee after his official visit on Monday. But I like the upside for everything Ryan said. He can shoot. He wasn't exactly a high volume guy, and I don't think he had a very good fit at Georgia Tech either, but he has SEC experience. I think he's a little on the younger side, but he still has veteran experience to bring into, obviously what will be a pretty young team / a very new team for Rick Barnes and company. And then, moving over to Massamba, the few things I was able to find about him, because I mean, the dude's a ghost. It's hard to even find too much about him. You have to look on X. There's not much of him on YouTube. You kind of have to go to his specific X page, and he has like a unlisted YouTube video that has like 3 minutes of his highlights. From what I've been able to see, he's very athletic. I think defensively, he probably, assuming he were to end up in the SEC, not sure if the word I'd use is hold his own, but I think the athleticism is enough to where it could translate to where he wouldn't just be a sitting duck. I do wonder with the level of competition, if he were to end up in the SEC, how would that look translation wise? I wonder if he can, which one of his biggest things is he's a good scorer. In 20 minutes, he was averaging, I believe, 12 points at this at AC Monaco. And it's just, I don't know. It's just hard to tell because it's such a difference in college basketball and obviously the U21 teams over in Europe. It's a tough tell, but he definitely has, like you say, Chase, a lot of the upside. I think there's a lot of potential there, but you never know. You never know what he can turn into. I think it's going to be a bit of a project if he does end up at Tennessee. I doubt he would be playing more so than Abram, for example. But there definitely is upside moving forward. I think it would be an interesting addition if Tennessee decides to go that route.
It does help though. He's playing AC Monaco. I mean, that's good competition.
It's not
but
terrible.
it's not like the main team.
But it doesn't matter. It's
Yeah.
got to be better than what you're playing in a lot of the traditional high school circuit. Like it's got to be better than the U.S. high school circuit.
I'd say it's between high school and college. Yeah.
Which he's just a huge unknown. But that's what makes this entire 25 team so much fun potentially. It's like there's some absolute knowns. Like spoiler alert, Jacoby Gillespie is gonna be really good at Tennessee. Like I think Jacoby Gillespie is gonna be just fine. I think Jalen Carey is going to be a fan favorite because Jalen Carey is going to want the smoke and is going to play Rick Barnes basketball to an elite degree. It's my guess. There's a lot of stuff that just, even with all the turnover, I just look at the roster. I'm like, I know it. I kind of know what you're getting there. I kind of know it. And then there are some you have no idea. Like just absolutely. Does Troy Henderson factor in at all? Does Nate Ament have a superstar type role? Does there are so many other guys on this team that you're like, what is JP Estrella in year 3? It's just interesting that the differences between so many different guys where I feel like some we have an exact understanding of what things are going to do. And then there are some that like, man, I have no idea, but there's just a lot of options. Like that's my favorite part of this 25-26 team is that I think there's going to be so much depth. And it's going to be so much fun to see them figure all this for Barnes to figure out who's going to play, who's not, and how it's all going to factor in. But I think they're going to close strong here, and I think it's going to be fun to see how it all comes together. But speaking of Jacoby Gillespie, Ryan, do you buy or sell that Jacoby Gillespie has to be Tennessee's best player to reach a Final Four next year? Does it all come down to Jacoby?
No, sell, huge time sell.
Mm.
I would go different player. It has to be Nate Ament.
Oh,
I think know what you get in Jacoby Gillespie. To your point, he's a known. Sure, he can be a little bit better. There's obviously always going to be some variance when it comes to production. But you know what you get in Jacoby Gillespie, I think, for the most part. Nate Ament's a huge unknown. How good can he be? And I don't think Jacoby Gillespie can be a number one on a Final Four type team. I think Jacoby Gillespie can be a number one and be Tennessee's best player in Tennessee, can make Sweet 16 and have a really nice year and be in the top 25 and spend a lot of weeks in the top 10 and have some nice wins. But if Tennessee's going to make the Final Four, I think they need Jacoby to be the number 2 guy, and they need Nate Ament to be a superstar. I think that's what needs to happen for Tennessee to get to their first Final Four.
So I don't know. That's interesting. I didn't think it would be that obvious, Ethan Stone to Ryan, that it has, because maybe part of me just wonders like if Jacoby has one final gear at Tennessee, and maybe not having Rodney Rice, maybe having more responsibility in the backcourt and what he could be.
Second year in Power 5 too.
Right. Like I wonder if there is another level where like, are we sure that he can't be a first team All-American next year? Like, is that completely out of the question?
I don't think that's out of the question at all. I would agree with Ryan that it feels like Ament's, I don't know if I like saying this, but ceiling is higher. Like, I mean, yeah. he can be very, very good at basketball, or he could be pretty good at basketball. I have a strong feeling that his floor is not going to be very low, immense, but I would agree with exactly what Ryan said. That's what I've been thinking since they signed him, because that's just how talented he is, and that's how much Barnes likes him. I mean, he's made that a priority. And he's just so explosive. I mean, if he can get that shot off, if he's averaging 20 points a game, Tennessee really they're going to be in a pretty great spot. Whereas if Jacoby Gillespie's the top guy and Ament is just, a 10-point per game type of dude, I wonder where that explosiveness comes from. I wonder where, when you need a bucket. I like Gillespie. I think I'm higher on Gillespie than you would think I am from this answer. But I'm not. Gillespie, what makes him so good is he is the ultimate facilitator. I think that's his upside. He sees the court very well. I think he's a lot like Zakai in that sense. He's a better shooter than Zakai. I think he has a little more offensive upside, but I'm not sure that he's the number one dude on a Final Four team. I think he's the complement piece to that. I think he's I think I've said this on the show before. You guys are probably sick of it, but he's the Mike Conley. He's the guy that
you haven't said the Mike Conley comparison on this show, I don't think.
Yeah, I do it a lot because that's the Utah Jazz. He was perfect for it, and I want him.
Conley was great at Ohio State, though. By the way,
no bad memories, no bad college basketball memories for Tennessee basketball fans and Mike Conley.
None. Sorry,
you didn't bring any up, Ethan. Don't worry about it.
So.
When I think about Mike Conley, it makes me think like Greg Oden too, of just like how relevant Ohio State basketball's been for a long time now. Great court.
Well, really more how irrelevant they are the last 5 to 8 years compared to their history of their program.
Yeah.
No.
It's
I will say, to getting it back to the point, I think there probably is a middle ground, and Ethan makes a good point for all right, maybe there's a world where Jacoby Gillespie averages 16, 17 points a game, but six assists and is being a good defender, and he's an all-around better player than
42% from three, maybe.
What'd you say?
42% from three, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Efficient scorer, scoring a good bit, but doing a lot more else. Where objectively, Jacoby is the best player on Tennessee's team. But in that scenario, I think Nate Ament needs to be a 18, 20 points per game guy. And maybe he's not doing as many things to affect winning. But so I guess I would pivot it to saying instead of the best player, I think Nate Ament has to be Tennessee's leading scorer. Their best scoring option if they're going to be a Final Four team.
And that's what's so interesting, because it took time, right? For Barnes to be all right, it's time for the Dalton Connect show. And it's this is all y'all are going to do. Get ready to learn standing around the perimeter, buddy, because this is Dalton's court and you're all living in it. And I wonder if Nate Ament makes that clear very early on, or that's something we notice in December, or we get to conference play when it's Nate Ament settled in, and this is now the Nate Ament show. And how guys like Gillespie and the bigs around him deal with that. If he does make that kind of monster, he's now up to number 2 overall player and on 3. It's just this. We have no precedence for this at Tennessee. We have no idea how this is going to go. The only precedence we have for Rick Barnes is Kevin Durant. That is the precedence there. And again, we're not saying this man's going to be Kevin Durant for his 1 year at Tennessee, but it is both exciting and also wild to think of just how big of how good he could be, and how still it could be a Jillian Phillips thing. There's just such a huge amount of possibilities with Nate Ament still, but that's fun. That's what makes next year so much fun.
And then I feel you come into it also with sorry. I feel like you come into it also with, can he take that much responsibility? Especially if the shooting guard position with, Amari Abram being the front runner right now and having whiffed on 3 guys, especially with the shooting guard situation being where it is. If you can't get a truly elite knockdown shooter at the 2, that just puts more strain on the freshman who, as we've all said, I think is very capable of doing things similar to what Dalton Connect was able to do and similar to what Durant was able to do at Texas. But it's an unknown, like you say, Chase, like you've been harping on the entire time. There's a lot of different ways this could go, based a lot, I feel, on a man, and that's a lot of pressure to be putting on a young guy like him.
Yeah, and I think one thing I was just gonna add on Ament, which would be I guess this would be the negative take or the concern on him, but it's one, this dude was the number 50 player in the country at this time last year, so he's a late bloomer as a player. I still think he's far from his ceiling. And I think he's a number 2 player because of what he can be in 5 years, maybe a little bit more than what he could be next year. Maybe that's not accurate, but that's kind of a feel I get. And at the same time, I mean, you read some of the stuff on him, it's very much like a little bit of a soft-spoken kid, smart basketball player, makes the right play. I think Tennessee probably needs him to have a little bit of that killer instinct, a little bit of that I'm going to take over a game, a little bit of the unafraid to shoot from anywhere. And I'm not saying he's not going to have that. I guess, wonder more if he's going to have that. Because I think for Tennessee, for him to be that 18, 20 points per game guy, for Tennessee to make a Final Four, I think he's going to need to have that.
And who's to say Cade Phillips isn't settle in at the 2?
He's going to be launched. 53s from Cade.
Yeah, like who says no? Cade at the 2. Let's try it out. Let's get weird, man. Let's throw Cade out there on the perimeter. In all seriousness, Ethan, let's switch gears here because we're having too much positivity in terms of how Tennessee basketball. Like as I think I've said on this program of late, folks, for all the Vol fans tuning in each and every day, put all of your emotional stock into the Tennessee men's basketball program next year. Like that's where you want to go. Like that's where you want to.
Who cares about football?
Like not
Dumb
me.
Sport.
Yeah. Like last year, I told people it was like baseball was last year. Like baseball was the one to go down the rabbit hole. This year it's basketball. This year it's basketball. It's just I've dropped the gif of from Naked Gun of like nothing to see here with the town burning behind him with Leslie Nielsen with Tennessee's offseason at this point on the football side of things, Ethan. But I mean, now that it's basically done here, we have Jacoby Thomas in the portal. Christian Charles, I think, as of this recording, committed to Virginia out of the portal. John Slaughter has not found a home yet, I do not believe. But that's 3 safeties. Larry Johnson, who was going to be probably your swing tackle. I still don't believe he was ever going to start over David Sanders or Lance Hurd this year, but we'll never know now at that spot. But when you look and still no wide receivers added here with the 7 scholarship guys. I mean, when you look at all of that, Ethan, for the fans who are tuning in, who are feeling like the sky is falling with Tennessee football this spring, do you think this offseason has been as bad as it's felt? And what do you think has been the biggest disaster and maybe the most overblown of what's gone on this offseason for Tennessee?
Unfortunately, I do. I kind of think the outcry over what's happened to Tennessee football over the offseason, I think it's warranted. And, we just spent, 25 minutes here talking about how well Rick Barnes and company have done during the offseason. And despite the fact that they're still looking for a shooting guard, you feel really good heading into next year. Tennessee football, I feel like you can't be more the opposite than that. Like they in comparison, they have 25 outgoing transfers and 5 incoming transfers. You lose your starting quarterback who you assume is going to take a big jump. And instead you end up with App State's quarterback and obviously who was going to be UCLA's quarterback. And like you say, Chase, you didn't really address the receiver position, and the one guy you did get, which is Amari Jefferson, if I remember correctly right now, he's still rehabbing from injury. So you wonder how much, and he didn't play much at Alabama. He was a Mr. Football Tennessee, of course, in high school, but you wonder the talent's there, but can you get all that power on the ground? There's just a lot of negatives thrown the way, and just frankly, not a lot of positives. I think Aguilar, obviously, the quarterback coming in, I think Merklinger and McIntyre are probably going to have a battle for the position more than people are thinking right now, because Aguilar, while I think there are some upsides to him, and I don't think I'm as Debbie Downer on he as I was last week when he committed. I don't think there's a massive, how do I put this, optimism from me that he will be an improvement on what Nico would have been this season. I think he could maybe be an improvement on what Nico was last season, but I'm not sure how much that helps Tennessee with how much they're losing. And obviously the question mark at receiver, like I've already gone over, and losing some people on the defensive end. Obviously, we heard just last week, Norman Lott and Pierce and all these top-end defensive linemen. I mean, everyone talks about the offense, but you still got to replace those guys as well. So just a lot of questions to be answered. And when you don't have that many answers to these questions, it's hard to feel very good about it as we stand right now, 4 or 5 months away from the start of the season.
I mean, last year you had one big question. It was the secondary. And that's a good spot to be in because the secondary proved to be great. I mean, Jermon McCoy is being mocked as a top 10 pick, like the highest pick in the Heupel era right now for 2026. So you're okay in the secondary. Boo is going to be, he projects as a first rounder down the line. There's a lot of talent there. Boo is Ryan just met like Ryan. Yeah, you
He
can
might be. I just loved how matter of factly you said that.
as the leader of the Boo Carter fan club, and also just the Boo Carter believer.
The Boo Boys.
The Boo Boys.
Boo boys.
I'm all in, man. I think that dude is just going to continue to get better. I hope they're able to keep him for all 3 or 4 years, however long he's here. But Boo Carter's just electric. I don't think he's going to be even better this year. But all that being said, Ryan Schumpert, do you agree with Ethan's point here that it actually has been just like, unfortunately, it just has been as bad as it's felt for a lot of Tennessee fans, and that this has been, I mean, I think the most brutal offseason since the first spring Heupel got here. I think this kind of reminds me of the spring of 2021, where there's so much uncertainty at so many positions. There's so much turnover, kind of like there's more talent, especially on defense. Like you still have a really high floor there, which makes you feel better than where you were 2021. But man, you just, I just, the more I look at it, the more I think about stuff, it's just too many things have to be answered in a positive light for Tennessee to get anywhere close to where they want to go. And that was even with Nico. And that's something that's been forgotten. And that's something that's been kind of something I've disagreed with from some national folks and things like that, of just like what that ultimately means this year, because I just don't think this is a team winning a title with or without Nico. I think there was just, they felt very rebuilding even with Nico in the boat. Like they were trying to do both at the same time, reloaded a lot of spots and hit on a lot of key evals, but they are also just kind of like, well, we have a great schedule and we have a really strong defense, and maybe we can sneak back in. And then who knows what happens if we can get to 10-2 and get back into the playoffs. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I don't agree. I don't really see many similarities to the 21 offseason. Definitely the most pessimistic maybe since then, or most negativity, but I don't really see many actual similarities.
I mean, you didn't even know who the quarterback was in 21. I think you had to, like, we didn't know. Your quarterback who started week 1 was a spring portal entry in Milton, and looks like QB1 might be Aguilar, spring portal guy. I think running back was pretty unknown after Eric Gray left for Tennessee. I think there was some questions on how the running game would look. Tion Evans was a huge unknown, and he factored in, obviously, in a big way. Gone but not forgotten. Tion Evans and versus Mizzou. Many forget. One of my favorite Tennessee games of all time that will be lost in the ether. Tennessee running for like 1 billion yards in Columbia. But yeah, I don't think there's more similarities than you're giving credit to.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't see a whole lot.
That's for the people on youtube.com/Chase Thomas Podcast. Goodness
yeah,
gracious.
I don't know. To me, the similarity
Ethan
stop
saw that.
with the similarity stop with not for sure knowing who the quarterback is while bringing in a guy in the spring. But yeah, no, it's been a bad. Honestly, I'll throw in another similarity. High school recruiting wasn't going too well that year, though it was certainly more depressing than it is right now. And I'm not going to pretend to be super locked into the high school scene, but it just doesn't seem like there's been a ton of juice there. At this
they
point,
lost one last week, a 4-star who's been rising, Tyson Bacon. So, and that just never happens. Like, it's one of those where they're like, oh, they'll circle back around. It's like, those don't ever really happen. Like, guys who commit and then decommit don't usually commit back to the same team. Like, it's very rare if you go through that's something that actually
especially
happens.
if there's not a coaching change.
Right. Like, I have a hard time believing that goes back the way, because it's just too many other variables, too many other teams get involved, and it's just, I don't know. It's unlikely.
Yeah, no, completely agree. But yeah, no, it's been a bad offseason, no doubt. I mean, it's hard to find too many positives to take from it. I mean, from the jump of that best returning player on the team towards ACL, working out at home in January. And I would say that feels all the more important now as the offense looks shaky. I guess I don't even know if overblown is the right word. And we talked about it last week. Like, I don't specifically blame Heupel for how he handled the Nico stuff specifically in the spring. I probably shouldn't have brought him back after he skipped practice. It does kind of, to me, seem like they were putting out some fillers ahead of time, and they were doing their due diligence on some quarterbacks, trying to get them into the portal. And certainly none of that matters because they weren't able to get anyone in the portal that was really proven. But I think that was always that was always going to be very difficult. So like the best they could do being Joey Aguilar, like I don't kill them for that. I killed them for not cutting ties with Nico in January when you could have gotten somebody better, and this stuff was already brewing.
I mean, that's a hard spot that's a really brutal, like it's easier for us to say, and that we would
for sure
on the outside for that. But there is no question that like the Aguilar thing, that's one of the things I think I would push back on with just his like what he's ultimately gonna be at Tennessee this spring. It's like, it's not even about Aguilar. It's like Tennessee didn't really have a choice here, but I think you could have gotten, I think it's silly to believe that Tennessee could not have gotten some of these big names that they were going after in December had that been
1,000%.
like a full spring off season. Like, and then you're feeling completely different about this team in 2025. But Aguilar is just kind of what you had to have at this point, just to have another scholarship body. Because like, and if we gave Josh Heupel some truth serum, like where does Aguilar fit in the December window for Tennessee and calls they make in turn if Nico enters the portal? Like what, 35?
They don't get there, that's for sure.
Yeah, like that's the thing. So I mean, that's one of the parts that I think's been overlooked here, is that like this was not a targeted approach where it's like Tennessee locked in on Aguilar as their Nico replacement. It was more like, we need a body, like we need, and then he's a wild card, and it's like if it works out, it works out, but like we'd have to have somebody, and the portal's closing, and we're gonna have to end up doing a swap here, like because nothing about his game fits Tennessee, nothing. Like you could say,
oh,
he's a good
deep ball.
That Tennessee hasn't what in the last 2 years, like are we seeing? I mean, it's an okay deep ball, but like he's a guy who plays outside of structure. He has a low completion percentage. He throws a bunch of picks. Like I don't feel like he's the kind of like machine guy that you have to have in this scheme. Like I think he's just someone who I just don't see it going well, especially 3 schemes in 6 months. Like he learned, like I don't know. Like we don't even know if he's gonna be here in June or in mid-May. And if it's June, as been like the rumblings there, they can't get him here before then. It's not even his fault. Like this is a terrible situation for all involved. Like I just don't see how it goes well. Like I just don't. I think this is going to be the Merck show sooner rather than later. And look, I welcome the Merck show, as you know, on this very program.
Where's Jake from?
Savannah.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Many forget state of Georgia.
Oh, okay. Oh, good clarification. I thought it might have been South Carolina.
It just doesn't. South Carolina just doesn't hit the same, you know. Not that I have a level of bias towards.
No, obviously not.
The home state. Peach State.
I will say, like the turnover things, like it is very real with Joey Aguilar. So I'm not like saying I don't get why people are saying that. I will say I think a lot of Tennessee's system dials down the turnovers from their quarterbacks. I don't think Tennessee's had thrown the last in the Heupel era combined like 15 interceptions.
Well,
maybe?
Part of that is he takes away stuff. Like Milton would have thrown a lot of interceptions if they let Milton operate the same way they were letting him do in 2022.
So like when we're evaluating Aguilar and you're like, oh, huge turnover problems, he's going to turn the ball over a ton. I'm like, no, I don't really think so. I think Tennessee's offense does a ton to minimize that. And he's not going to be Hendon throwing, 30.
But that's ugly. We've watched it the last 2 years. That's tough. It's a tough watch. It's a lot of 12 personnel.
For sure.
I also think you're asking a lot of Aguilar to change really his game. I mean, he's a gunslinger. Yeah. He fits balls into tight corners. That's the one thing that I noticed when I was watching the I'll say tape on him. I watched 30 maybe to an hour of the guy. But the one thing I noticed is dude's not afraid. I mean, he's got all the confidence in the world, and that I think is a good thing. But to Chase's point, I'm not sure how well that's going to fit in, because I think that's his biggest strength. I think like his fearlessness, for better or worse, and there was a lot of worse. I just kind of have to set the record straight for Tennessee fans. But
he got worse from year to year, right? Like
he's a gunslinger. That's his thing.
Yeah. It's scary that he got worse with more tape on him at App State. Like that scares me. Like he got significantly worse from year 1 to year 2 as a starter at App State. Where App State, people forget, Sean Clark got fired from that season at App State, but it was like they were projected to do really well this past year. It wasn't like
people thought they might beat Clemson.
That's what I'm saying, and it did not go that way at all.
No, it was No, I agree. We talked about it last week.
I've seen the take that his offensive line and his receivers got worse. That's just blatantly false. The top 3 receivers stayed exactly the same. I don't know about the offensive line. He might have lost members of the offensive line. I didn't check into that. The receivers were all the same guys, and his production went way down. Now, if he's running for his life and he lost 4 receivers, then that's obviously a problem. I mean, not receivers. If he lost 4 linemen, that's important context to add. I genuinely don't know that, but his receivers were there. That wasn't the problem.
I don't know, Ethan. I don't know specifically who the offensive linemen were, and certainly this is not just the Bible, unless, well, PFF is not the Bible unless they're grading the 2025 NFL draft, in which they had the Titans as one of the top 5 draft picks, and then it's basically the football Bible then. But when their analysis of offensive line is not the Bible, but their Appalachian State's pass blocking grade as a team went up from 2023 to 2024, making it all the more puzzling. Joey Aguilar's struggles, his step back. Because you're right, top 4 receivers, was a different running back. The running game wasn't quite as good, but top 4 receivers, go-to tight end or starting tight ends, offensive line pass block grade was better. It's really puzzling why his production dropped off as much as it did.
I think it seems like we're all in agreement. I think, and I wonder as time goes on this summer, spring and summer, it's just like the where, because I think a lot of it was just, because again, it has nothing to do with the kid, like Aguilar. It's just, I don't think it's going to go well, objectively. From the outside, like, I think there's all kinds of warning signs. It's kind of like the Tennessee football spring offseason. It's just, there's a lot of warning signs just all over the place where I'm like, that's a lot that he has to clean up. That's a lot that we have to ignore. That's a lot we have to look at of like, maybe it will be different at Tennessee. And I have a hard time believing it. I don't think you're going to get 12 games of Joey Aguilar as Tennessee's starting quarterback in the regular season this year. I have a hard time saying that with all the different circumstances at play here. But to put a bow on it, Ethan, do you think there is any chance that Joey Aguilar is better than Nico in 2025?
I'll echo what I said earlier. I think Nico is going to be a better quarterback this season for UCLA than Joey Aguilar would be for Tennessee. I think there's a chance, because of what I've said, that he's genuinely fearless. He can throw the football. He will throw the football. He'll throw interceptions. He'll throw touchdowns. He will throw the football. And I think that's a good thing. And I think there's a possibility that he could outpace what Nico did last season. But you're asking for a lot of things to go right, because we're talking about all this. You still forget your wide receiver 1 and 2 are not exactly the most proven guys in the world. I'm not really sure who there even is that's going to step up behind him. Or Darius Jackson had a good spring. Come on down, dude. You might have to be wide receiver 3, because I don't know who else it's going to be. Braylon Staley.
Chris Brazzell.
Could be a good player. I don't know. There's just a lot of unknown. You're asking Aguilar to do an awful lot. And, I've said the fearless thing 1,000 times, but I think that is the best thing going for him right now, is that he's got experience and he's not afraid. He'll go and he'll probably throw some interceptions. He'll probably make people scratch their head a little bit with his decision-making. But that's how it's going to have to be. I think Heupel kind of also has to let him do it. If you're going to roll him out there, like, let him throw the ball, man. If he throws interceptions, he throws interceptions. Like, Mert's going to be your guy behind him. McIntyre's going to fight for that spot behind him. Just let the kid loose, see what happens. Unfortunately, as much as I'm rooting for him, I don't have high hopes that watching what he does is going to be excellent. But you got to do it. You got to just let him throw the ball and see what happens.
What about you, Ryan?
I'll start by just fighting back on what Ethan just said, because I disagree with that. That you just got to let him loose. Like, this thing is about not letting the sky fall. That is, to me, that is what the ceiling is about, or the season is about, is do not let things spiral. Do not let things collapse before inevitably you have a much harder schedule in 2026. And we're having similar, probably more optimistic, but similar conversations about who the starting quarterback is going to be. So I think, to Chase's point, you're playing a lot of 12 personnel. You're trying to lean on the run game. You're trying to lean on good defense, and you're just trying to win 7 or 8 games. I think that's what I'm doing. Maybe Joe Aguilar's not the best fit for that. Maybe it's Jake Merklinger. Yeah, I think that's a real possibility. But I don't think I'm letting him loose and saying, all right, well, you live with the turnovers. Like, maybe against Georgia. Yeah, maybe at Alabama. The game's probably not going to win.
I don't necessarily think it's going to work. I just think that's the only way he could possibly have success. I don't think doing it how you're saying. And, you got to let him go out and do it. I guess that's why you play the football game. But I just don't see I don't see him succeeding in that role. That's just me. He's not.
Yeah.
His decision making didn't show me anything in the hour of tape that I've watched that he has the ability to lead an offense like that. But I could be.
Yeah. No. I mean, I think that's a fair takeaway. I mean, to the point of the question as a whole, like I would kind of get asked like what Nico we're talking about. We're talking about Nico at UCLA. Like I would lean Nico at UCLA still being better, but UCLA stinks. And he's all the stuff we're talking about with Joey Aguilar right now. Nico's doing the same bit of it. So it's not like he's in a good situation at UCLA.
Well, I will say the one thing I'll push back on the UCLA part of it. Tino Sinceri he didn't call plays at Indiana, but he comes from the Signetti tree. And it's a very different scheme than Eric Bieniemy. We're super complicated, NFL style. It was a bad marriage between Bieniemy and UCLA last year. I'm not, like, whatever UCLA numbers you're looking at a year ago, I just think you got to throw them out. Because I think UCLA's offense is going to be better this year. I think Tino Sinceri is a clear upgrade at OC.
I don't know, maybe. You're saying that the guy who was not calling plays for a team is a clear upgrade over the guy.
I mean, he's in the Signetti. He's been with Signetti for a while. I don't know.
Eric Bieniemy won multiple Super Bowls, and you're talking about how much
it's very
sucks.
different at the college. We haven't seen Eric Bieniemy work at the college level. We've seen Indiana's offense in the Sig show work for multiple years in the college level, both at James Madison and in Indiana.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Tino Sinceri wasn't running the show, so
yeah.
I think it's a lot different when you're actually the one.
But it's also the schedule and just the talent. Like, that's the problem is, like, I don't think it goes well for Nico overall there. USC, I think it would have been. If he had found a way to get on USC, I think.
Just let him sit on the bench for a year. If they were smart, he would have sat on the bench for a year for USC and then been their starting quarterback going into 26. He'd have made himself a whole lot more money in the NFL draft.
Yeah. I don't know. A lot of big question marks here. I think we're all in agreement. I think we all three would be surprised if it went well and Joey Aguilar had just a ball. He balled out and Tennessee had a great 1-year story with Aguilar. Doesn't mean we're rooting for that not to happen. It's just, look, we gotta. What does Tony Basilio say? We call balls and strikes. We gotta call balls and strikes on this program. And I just feel like we're gonna be honest. And I don't think any of the three of us see this going well between Aguilar and Tennessee this fall. I just don't. Final football thing, and we'll wrap with a quick baseball topic here. But Ethan, your favorite fall football NFL draft landing spot for you of the 4 who were drafted here from Tennessee over the week was who? Who did you like the most and fit wise?
I think most of them fit pretty well for what it's worth. Thinking about your question, I narrowed it down to 2, and that's James Pierce for the Falcons and then Dante Thornton for the Raiders, which is my answer. I think Thornton works really well with the Raiders. Specifically, not necessarily do I think he's going to be a Pro Bowl player in 3 years. I think the situation is amazing for him specifically if he's looking for starting time, because we all know the Raiders love speed. We all know the Raiders just don't really have wide receivers. I mean, they've drafted 2 of them with Jack Besh out of TCU, and he's probably going to beat out Thornton. But I mean, look at their depth chart, man. It's Jacoby Myers, it's Besh, and it's probably going to be Thornton as wide receiver 3 to start the year. So he'll get a lot of run. He'll get a lot of opportunity. And obviously with Pete Carroll coming in, that probably is going to be slightly more fun on offense than what it has been. And obviously the Raiders got Ashton Genty as well, who I, as the Chicago Bears fan on the pod, am a little salty over. I wanted Ashton Genty, but that's fine. It's okay. That's not what we're talking about.
You have DeAndre Swift at home.
We have. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I do think Thornton's. I think he very sneaky could have a pretty good rookie year in the NFL. And then, I mean, Chase, obviously you're the resident Falcons fan here. Pierce just seems like a good fit to me. He feels like he's a guy that will be starting in 2 or 3 years on that defense. But you're the guy to talk to about that. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, it's been a weekend. I was telling people last week where I was like, I didn't want this to happen because I started seeing Pierce mocks to the Falcons. And it's not about Pierce personally. It's about trading up now. So now there's more pressure on James Pierce to be a plug and play guy, where I've watched a lot of bad Falcons pass rush games. Like, Falcons haven't had a 7+ sack guy in the longest time span in NFL history. We've gone through the Tack McKinleys, the Vic Beasleys, Matthew Judon last year. That was brutal. And I don't want Pierce to fall into that. Cordell Patterson was fun. I enjoyed watching James Pierce grow and develop over the last 3 years at Tennessee. I don't want to be watching the combination of the bad vibes for this podcast on Mondays could be generational if Tennessee football goes where we think it might be, and then James Pierce is not a instant impact sack guy where I'm like, I just can't. I'm just sad because Tennessee has gone all in now with Jalen Walker and trading up for James Pierce that I'm like, man, everyone's just expecting this to just now everything's fixed. The Atlanta Falcons are now going to have a great pass rush. You brought in Leonard Floyd this offseason as some veteran help. You still have Arnold Ebiketie in the building that you've just thrown so many darts at the dartboard. Some of these guys have to stick. And I want Pierce to be that guy. That'd be awesome. I heard someone compare him to Javon Curse today, and I'm like, I'll take it. I would love James Pierce to be our Javon Curse. Yeah, and that'd be awesome. But now I have to live with the pressure of James Pierce and everyone in my life being like, the Tennessee guy did not work out for us if it goes that way. It's just one of those that's just going to be, really, no more Tennessee guys if James Pierce does not work out for the Atlanta Falcons. So I'm not really looking forward to that in my life. But I also think there is a real chance that James Pierce could be awesome for the Falcons. And it'll be really fun for my favorite team to have a great fall killing it. But I don't know. It's a lot of pressure here. And the trading up part of it, I'm just like, I think it was
a lot.
It was a lot. So I just,
much to give
Pierce,
up.
Fair to him or not, he's walking into a lot of pressure this year.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. It's TBD. But I will tell you, if I'm James Pierce, I'm looking at this history and I'm like, is there a curse here? Because no one develops at the Leo spot for the Atlanta Falcons, and I hope Pierce breaks that streak. But I don't know. We shall see. I tend to agree though that I think Dante Thornton had the best landing spot. I mean, maybe Omar Lot because I think he's going to play.
The one I would go with.
Yeah, I think that one's probably good. But I also think Samson. Chubb's 30. Quietly, Nick Chubb turns 30 this year. So I think even with Quinton Judkins, I think D-Samp is in a good spot as a QB or RB1, RB2 combo with Judkins over there in Cleveland. I mean, obviously the quarterback stuff's a mess, but that doesn't affect Samp. Samp should be in a good spot there. So I don't know. I think I don't really have any qualms, I guess, about any of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think any of them are too bad. I like Norman a lot because he's so good at one thing and rushing the passer, and I think he's in a spot with the Chiefs where they're not going to have to ask him to do a bunch of stuff that he's not good at. He can immediately come into a role and do what he's best at and potentially play besides Chris Jones and never get double teamed while doing it. I like that landing spot for him a lot.
Yeah. It was interesting because I think a lot of the NFL draft people I talked to, they like Omar Norman Lott more than any of the Tennessee players this year by a healthy margin. He was the favorite of who's your favorite Tennessee prospect this year. It was Omar Norman Lott for a lot of people. Final thing here, Ryan Schumpert, and we'll get out of here. So Tennessee baseball loses their third of their last 4 SEC series. It's kind of, I was thinking about it today. I'm like, it's just so silly because it's like, how we look at this team if they just had one inning. I mean, you led for 17 innings in Baton Rouge and they free fall to 12 and 13 in D1 baseball in perfect game. I'm like, did you really see that much more out of LSU than Tennessee over the weekend? I understand it ended really poorly with a run rule loss on Sunday, but I mean, Tennessee was 1 inning away from winning that series in convincing fashion, I would say. If you have those 2 wins in game 1 and game 2 with how Phillips and Doyle pitched, and you got run ruled in the final one, but you're just hey, it was a bullpen game and you can easily throw it away. Who cares? We already had won the series on the road in a really tough place to play. But I don't know. I mean, when you look at where things stand right now with Tennessee baseball, is it more pitching? Is it more hitting right now? Where are you at as we wrap up here tonight?
I lean more pitching being what worries me, especially after the top 2 guys in Doyle and Phillips. I don't even know where to go after that, really. There's just not Tony. And look, Tony's not going to make comments to the media that are raising red flags. He's going to remain positive at a stage like this. But he's like, yeah, we just, I guess I asked about the bullpen. It's we just got to roll with the guys we can trust. And I'm just like, who exactly is that? Who?
Yeah, you wrote about that today.
Yeah, who besides Nate Snead and maybe, I guess, Dylan Loy and Tanner Franklin you can have some trust in. And, yeah, sure, a little bit of trust, not as much consistency as you'd like to see. But when you combine that with the fact that you don't have a a Sunday starter right now that you can trust, it's just, I don't know. The bullpen numbers have been terrible in SEC play. I don't feel great about the Sunday starting role. Getting Braden Krenzel back will help. I mean, he's been.
Do we even
good
know
in
where
SEC
Krenzel's been the last 2 weeks?
Yes, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I expect him to be back this week.
Okay.
And then it's like I think everybody's just kind of hoping that AJ Russell is going to be the savior of this pitching staff. And I said it on our RTI podcast last week. Like, yeah, his outing against Kentucky was good if you look at the box score, and it wasn't terrible by any means, but got hit pretty hard. Hunterston made some nice running catches in center field, and again, his velo is as low as it's been all year. He hasn't had the fastball, the movement on the fastball like he had last year when you were just like dropping your jaw watching him pitch. So you combine some of those things. Yes, I still think he can help Tennessee. Yes, I think he can be a good bullpen arm, especially when we're talking about how bad the bullpen is. Like he can definitely help this team. But the thought that he was going to come in and look like a top 15 pick and just be like a savior for a pitching staff that was, could use 4 to 5, 6 more innings on a weekend, I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. So, yeah, there are some questions with the offense, no doubt. And I don't think the ceiling's super high with the offense, but to me, it's way more about the pitching staff right now.
I mean, is there someone else like on Tuesdays that can come in? Like, is it a Crabtree? Is it a Breedlove? Does Tony expand? But I mean, this is not the time to expand.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
Watch him pitch on Sunday.
Yeah.
Quote, who was Mike Zimmer? The quote Mike Zimmer on Kellen Mond after the Vikings got killed on Sunday Night Football, the Packers. He put Kellen Mond in for 3 plays. He almost threw 2 interceptions, and they went 3 and out, and then he went back to the other. I think Kirk Cousins was hurt, so he went back to the other guy playing quarterback after the game. I want to see more Kellen Monds. See him every day. That's how I feel about those arms. Just see him every day. They got a chance against LSU. They didn't do anything to encourage me to think they're going to help. And to Tony's point,
it's just kind of wild though. We didn't see that right before the year. Like we thought we liked all the offseason.
None of the JUCO guys hit.
Yeah.
Combs isn't hit. Arvidsson hasn't hit. Crabtree hasn't hit. Wiggins obviously is injured now, but he hadn't hit. To me, they've
really missed Kirby. They've missed Kirby way more than I thought they would. I mean, Kirby was awesome for Tennessee, but that just kind of like that would have been a Kirby spot where Sharman went in on Sunday. That's a classic Kirby.
Binky hasn't hit. He's the guy we thought would help them.
Binky
for
was
sure.
the big one.
Like it not being Binky in that spot is crazy. And I'm not saying Tony was crazy not to put Binky in, but just that's like represents the pitching.
Yeah, Binky was in the game when the game was over on Sunday.
Yes, he was.
I don't know. Like it's just a lot. It's kind of like when we talk about Tennessee's offense and their question in football right now going to like it's a lot of questions there. I'm like the bullpen's got a lot of questions. Like it's just hard to see that many questions answered before. I mean, we're near in May. Like this is last 3 SEC series, and you've got so many questions in the bullpen.
It's not even like yes, I trust Nate Snead. Yes, I have some trust in Dylan Loy and some trust in Tanner Franklin, but it's just like even them, and look, like so much of their issues the last month have just spiraled on themselves, or they just play hand in hand. Like, yes, Dean Curley makes 2 plays he has to make. Tennessee wins on Friday night. Still, it was Tennessee's best reliever on the mound, needing 2 outs and a tying run at the plate. You still have to win the game, even with those 2 things. You got your best reliever on the mound. You still should win the game. But Nate Snead isn't able to. Dean Curley lets down Nate Snead. Nate Snead's not able to pick up Dean Curley. And it just feels like there's a lot of that right now where some issues, like to me, Nate Snead's not a major issue. Like he hasn't been as good as you would hope for. He hasn't been as good as he was last year, but he certainly hasn't been bad. But because of all these other issues, him not being fantastic has become an issue. They all build off each other, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
There you go. Ethan Stone, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over at SaturdayDownSouth.com this week?
Yeah, I'm going to be working a lot more on the news desk and this week, at the end of this week, and then next week. So be a little more plugged in there. I've got a piece coming out sometime this week. I don't know when it's going to be, just on the current state of the SEC hoops, transfer portal, offseason outlooks, early outlooks. Obviously, we're far from over from all the transfer additions and whatnot, but trying to put together up for all 16 teams, and then we'll have full coverage of baseball, softball, and everything else of interest moving forward for SEC sports.
There you go. I love it. And what about you, Ryan Schumpert, over there at RockyTopInsider.com?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. Obviously, we'll have baseball coverage leading up to the Auburn series this weekend, and we'll have coverage of that. We'll be continuing to track everything going on in Tennessee basketball. If some of these guys that we talked about budge and commit this week, we'll have tons of coverage on all that and how they fit and what all that looks like, and then continuing to monitor Tennessee football transfer portal stuff. So got everything covered over at Rocky Top Insider, so come check us out.
There you go. Ryan Schumpert, Ethan Stone, always a pleasure, and I'll talk to y'all next week. All right, we're back here on the Chase Thomas podcast, where I'm now joined by old friend of the Sports Source over there on WATE every Sunday morning. He's now got the Sports Source Digital Network with all kinds of great guests coming in and out all week long that you can go subscribe to and check out on the Sports Source Digital Network YouTube channel. It's John Pennington. John, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Doing good, Chase. Thanks for having me. Hope you're doing well.
Thank you for being here, man. We would think that like this time of year here, late April, that it's like, oh, we can kind of take a step back here. And it's like, this has been, I don't know if you would agree, John, but it does feel like this has been the craziest Tennessee football offseason since Heupel got hired offseason, right?
Yes. Yeah, completely. When you look at, well, I mean, I guess it feels that way in a lot of places just due to the portal madness. And now everything's about money, and can you come up with an extra $20? And if not, this guy's going to leave and go to, Nebraska, and then you'll go get the guy he's replacing at Nebraska. And it just seems silly to me at this point. And as we showed on our show Sunday, that all these guys that are coming into the SEC right now, there's dozens of them. Each team, it's average of about 3.5 players per team for the portal. 4 of them were 4-star players. Everybody else, so you're just kind of swapping. And granted, there are 3-star guys who can be fantastic, but for the most part, it looks like you're trading a lot of B-level parts. So you look at that kind of stuff, and then, Tennessee, when are they not on the poster of something new, something controversial, something strange? You're always going to look at the movie poster of that weird event, and there's a power T in the middle of it. The first school to offer an insane, huge money contract to an 18-year-old kid. Fast forward 3 years, and the first school to have said big money kid hold out for a spring game and just leave in April. I mean, it's remarkable. I told David Ubben of The Athletic when he moved to town, I said, get ready. You're going to have stuff here that you've never had anywhere else. And he's like, I've covered a lot. It's like, yeah, okay. And he's seen a lot of crazy stuff go down since he's been here. It's wild, and it has been a busy April because of it. It's funny. Tennessee fans, you got to give them credit, because they have to suffer through more weird stuff. And in most cases, they come out, still optimistic. So it has been wild. It has been a crazy April.
It's why, like, even as crazy as it gets, it's like, it's just such a juggernaut that, like, it's one of those places, if you ever get it right, like you just saw baseball. It's just, if you get the right guy in there, it's just, the top will come off and you will dominate in a way where it's sitting there. And it's kind of like, I just feel like Tennessee right now is where Georgia was with Mark Richt. And that was a good spot to be in for a while. Like, Georgia fans love Mark Richt. And I mean, it's hard to forecast years and years down the line, but I think Heupel will always be well regarded by the majority of Tennessee fans, regardless of how the next couple of years go, just with how he steered this ship out of where it was with Pruitt and everything. I just look at it as like, he's a good dude. You like him. It's been fun. You've lost one home game in the last 3 years. Like, the floor has been raised significantly, but it's the same stuff that we talked about when he first got hired. It's like, what's the ceiling look like? What does the recruiting look like? What is the realistic expectations for Heupel? And I think it's so fascinating now that we're entering this point where I was talking to somebody there. It's like, it just feels like Heupel is the guy before the guy. And my thing is, I'm like, you make it seem like it's easy to just go from Rick to Kirby. Like, I don't know who that Kirby is right after Heupel that's just looming out there. I don't think Gerard Mayo is just like, let me go in here and I'll just be, I'll use my NFL acumen and we'll get a GM in here and we'll get this thing humming the way I want it to. It's like, I don't know who that guy is. Maybe that guy does exist, but to me, I think this is still okay. I think he deserves the time to figure this out this year. I think it's a gigantic year for him and his offense. And I'm very curious if Tennessee fans hold true to the Mulligan conversation we're having here in April, because I tend to don't think that that's going to continue depending on how it goes.
Yeah, I've already seen that shift with my viewers.
Really?
We did a poll question yesterday, and it was like, is this a rebuilding year, or heck no, it's year 5. You can't have a rebuilding year. And the winner at the end of the day was that. Whereas 2 weeks ago, it was 85% voted.
Yeah.
I don't care what happens this year. I'm with him because of what he did with Nico. And we laughed and said, get back with me if you're trailing at halftime of the Syracuse game. Well, it took 2 weeks, and that's already over. It's not a rebuilding year. You're supposed to win. I look at the Heupel thing differently than most. As a matter of fact, a former director of my show was in there yesterday before we did the show live. He was there taping something else. And we were talking, and he said, Heupel's been a disappointment, hasn't he? And I said, you mean the 30 wins in 3 years after dumpster fire? The playoffs last year, the Orange Bowl, which would have been a playoff berth under the current system.
Yeah.
That's disappointing. I just, and he's the same way. It's like, well, there's got to be something else out there. Yeah, that worked out well when you hired Lane Kiffin to replace Fulmer. That was excellent. I remember everybody loved Dooley and they loved Butch Pruitt. Oh, it was great. You just snap your fingers. See, that's why I hated the Kirby Smart thing working for Georgia. It tells all these other schools what we've got is good, but there's something better. And there's the one. See, it works. It works. And most teams, it doesn't work. That was what you had an alum who also happened to be under Nick Saban. Tennessee tried the Nick Saban thing a couple times. Didn't work with Dooley or Pruitt. Yeah. They happened to get the guy that worked. Could it be Georgia has off the charts recruiting? Could it be that they've kind of got a little recruiting advantage on everyone in the country in terms of the state of Georgia?
Yes.
And the fact that they don't compete with anybody. I mean, you can say, well, Florida's got 15 D1 schools in that state that they have to compete with. They got to compete with Florida State, Miami, UCF. Now, if you swipe one, if FAU swipes one, it's a
Miami.
little different. Yeah, whereas Georgia, it's basically you're recruiting against Georgia Tech. Okay, because Georgia State isn't stealing many.
Well, a little bit of Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee, most of their classes are still heavy Georgia kids. Like Tennessee's have it. Like you can't not live in Georgia as a Tennessee recruiter.
Right. Yeah. And you could say the same for a lot of SEC schools. So Georgia's having to fight those off, but they've got that in-state lead that's got an advantage on those that you're not going to have. Tennessee has a harder time going into Georgia than Georgia would have picking kids out of Georgia because they're there. Now that they've got it rolling, that's great. I just think it's I guess if I were an AD, I'd be the kind of AD that fans would despise, I suppose, because I would look at it and say, I've hired this person. Show me reasons to keep you. Whereas I think most fans, certainly fans here, they hire a guy and immediately start looking for reasons to fire you. There we go. Fire him. Oh, he lost a game in November. Fire him. Oh, because I remember when they first got Heupel, it was, let's see how he does against Florida and Georgia and Alabama. Now it's just, you can't beat Georgia. If you were beating Georgia, it would be he's not beating Alabama. It's just they're going to keep moving the goalposts. He's going to take a step back this year. I thought that before Nico left. I said it after the Ohio State game. You can't replace 4 offensive linemen, your top 3 wideouts, Dylan Sampson, and not call it a rebuilding year. It is. There's no way around it. So my guess is, even though he's overshot the mark most of the times I've set a bar, he's exceeded it for the most part. I don't think he can this year. I think you're going to take a step back. I think people will be calling for his head, saying he's not the guy. Whereas I would be looking at it saying, oh, wait, he's shown me he can get in the ballpark of being the guy. If the thing were seeded differently last year, like it should have been, you weren't opening at Ohio State. You weren't playing them fresh off them losing to Michigan where they were ready to beat their own mothers. They would have killed the priest if they could. They were just wild and ravenous that night. So to me, if you'd opened with SMU at home, which probably would have been the seeding the other way around, you might have won a game. Now you're in the second round of the playoffs. Is that why you fired Josh Heupel? Well, he didn't get past the second round. So to me, I'm looking at it saying this guy has shown me enough to keep building with him. Let's see what he can do, as opposed to, nope, I just want to check him off the list, move on. Well, let's just hire somebody every year. Nope, you didn't go 12-0 this year. You're fired. Who's next this year? I hate that kind of mentality because I look around. How's that work for Nebraska? How's that working for Florida? I said 5 years ago, Florida is becoming the new Tennessee. They're there. They're there. Will Muschamp. Well, he made an SEC title game, but his offense stinks. It's boring. We don't want that. Okay. Dan Mullen, SEC championship game. Yeah, but he's not recruiting well. Well, are you going to give him a chance to see if he can win with the guys he's getting? No. Okay. Well, then you just keep losing 7 games a year. Congratulations. That's tremendous. And then get mad and say, why can't we hire the right guy? Maybe because you don't give anybody a chance. I just think that Tom Osborne, it took him 30 years to win a national title. It took the same
Mhm.
for Bobby Bowden. If that's the bar, those guys would have been fired 25 years before they ever won it. Philip Fulmer, would he have made it to 98 now? I mean, he got the job in 93, and he
Yeah.
didn't beat Florida. Would he have even made it to 98, or would people be saying in this day and age, 10-1? I don't care about that Citrus Bowl. Fire him. So I'm at a different level than everybody else. I'm willing to give Heupel another couple of years, see what happens. I don't look at 30 wins in 3 years, considering the dumpster fire this place was for the last 20. I don't look at that and say, we need to move on. I look at that and say, okay, there's promise here.
Mm.
I don't have a problem with 10 wins a year. I think that's pretty good. Now let's see if he can hit. Here's the other question. What's the expectation to win it let's say it's 10 wins every year and he wins a national title, then he goes back to 10 wins every year. Well, he just won the one national title. 10 wins isn't good enough. If 10 wins isn't good enough after one title, would it be good enough after two titles? I mean, clearly it's not good enough now before a title. I don't understand what the goal is. I mean, I guess you could sit around and say, when does the heat get cranked up on Tony Vitello? Yeah, he won one, but it's been 3 years now since he won. I mean, is that where it goes?
Mhm.
We know the answer, yes. I just wonder when we start that clock on him. You just have to keep winning national championships around here. And it's remarkable at a school that doesn't win a lot of national championships that they have that mindset. That 98, it's not like you've had 98 15 times. You've had it twice in our lifetimes. And some people watching, they haven't had it in their lifetime. It was before they were born. So I would just look at the positives of Josh Heupel and say, all right, there's no reason to make a change here. We would just be possibly blowing ourselves up. Let's see what he can do. Let's try and aid him as best we can to move up from where he is with 10 wins a year. But if anybody had told me when he was hired, when he just lost 30 people, when Pruitt got here, and you got the NCAA cloud over your head, if you told me within 4 years he'll have 30 wins in 3 years, I would have said, you're nuts. You're crazy. And instead, that's not good enough. So don't know if that's that may be opposite your line of thinking, and I know it's opposite a lot of people's thinking, but I'm not saying he's the greatest coach in the world, but there's a hell of a lot worse out there.
No, I'm right there with you. I think he's somewhere in the top 15. I think he's in that 10 to 15 range nationally. I think what's interesting to me about where Tennessee is as a whole right now, John, is that like Tim Banks was a punching bag for years, right? Like it's just, we got to upgrade there. And I just like all he's done is just put a better scoring defense on the field every single year he's been at Tennessee. Like they were a top 10 scoring defense last year. Rodney Garner, I mean, he's hanging around. Like he is your most important coach on this staff, I think, by and large. You look at Coach Chop, you elevate there. Coach Chop, great recruiter, great developer of Leos. Tennessee's done a really good job. They just had a Leo go in the first round. That's identifying talent out of North Carolina. James Pierce is a good find by the staff. Omar Norman Lott was a great find out of the portal for this staff. They've done a really good job there. I think this is the most talented linebacker core they've had to this point in the Heupel era. Corner, you have Jermod McCoy getting mocked in the top 10 immediately after the 25 draft. That's been great because Willie Martinez has been a punching bag, and you're like, oh, we got to right there. And it's like, well, you have last year you had the best corner combination in the 21st century for University of Tennessee with Ricky Gibson and Jermod McCoy. Boo Carter can be an absolute superstar. Your best safety hybrid since Eric Berry. Like Boo Carter is a two-way player who's gonna have. I'm not gonna doubt Boo Carter. I think Boo Carter is going to be an exceptional football player here. Yeah. So I just look at the defense and I'm like, the defense isn't going anywhere. He's hired well. Like William Inge was a great replacement for Brian John Marie, extending Tim Banks and giving him just, protecting him, not just being like, oh, it's not good enough, whatever. We got to move on. We got to withstand the heat, whatever. He continues on. And Tim Banks is one of the best defensive coordinators, I think, in the sport. And keeping him and that staff intact is good. That being said, what I don't even want to say what troubles me. What I think this year now is not going to be an inflection point for Tennessee football because of the Nico wrench. If Nico had not left, I think this would have been a big year for Heupel in terms of how hands-on he can be with the offense going forward. Because right now, you have 2 years of below-average quarterback play, and you have 2 years of pretty great quarterback play and passing offense. So it's been 50-50. But the last 2 years, it's been the defense and the running game. That is a big reason as to why you're winning a lot of football games. But then you say, like, hey, Heupel deserves credit for going to 12 personnel and being like, my tackles can't block, so I'm going to do whatever it takes to win. Because I know, I don't know Heupel personally, but I know how this dude, I feel like I know that this guy has hated watching his offense the last 2 years. Like, there's no way he has enjoyed any part of the last 2 years offensively and what's been going on there. And I look at all that and I'm like, it's got to be driving him mad because he's just had success everywhere he's gone with his offenses, and it just has not worked for a cornucopia of reasons the last 2 years. It can't be all on one guy. That all being said, if Nico was around this year, like, you were betting on your evals at receiver, you were betting on your evals on the offensive line, you were betting on your evals at running back, and you were betting on your biggest eval at quarterback, making that year 3 leap into the Heisman, one of the best quarterbacks in the country phase. And if the passing game was still bad this year, it would have been like, okay, you've been protective of all of your guys. It's a young, like, the offensive side of the ball is all young guys, like everybody except Glenn Ellerby, under 40 years old on the offensive side of the ball. Position coaches. It's the exact opposite on the defensive side. It's all vets. It's all guys who know what they're doing and all that kind of stuff. So I just look at that and I'm like, I was prepared for this year to be so interesting to me of like, does the passing game get fixed? And they win in their evals. Now it's like, I don't know how to judge Heupel this year. I don't know how to judge this offense. I don't know what's fair. I don't think Aguilar's a good fit for this team. I don't think Aguilar would have been one of the first 10 guys they looked at in the December portal window. If all things were considered, it was just more of like, you'd make do with what you have. But it's like, he led the country in interceptions last year. That is not a Heupel guy. Heupel does not allow, like, we're not throwing picks in our system. We're throwing side to side, and it's like Milton, like, they were like, no, throwing over the field in 23, that's gone. We're only going side to side and running the football. That's what we're going to do, and we're going to win games.
Yeah.
I don't know how this works. I don't think he makes a lot of sense in this scheme, and I think it's just more of like a body. I mean, what happens if Jake Merklinger runs with this job, like, after Georgia? Like, they put him in because it doesn't go well, and they're 1-2 or 2-1, but the offense is just not working. Then do you lose Faison? Do you lose George because there's so many interesting parts to all of this that I have no idea what happens here.
You can't worry about Faison Brandon. That's the first thing, and that's going to drive everybody nuts. But he's a 5-star. Well, here's the thing: you could ride him and say, "Well, we'll take our lumps this year, so we'll keep Faison Brandon in the pipeline." All right. Well, Nico was a 5-star. How'd that look?
Yeah. Everybody
wanted Joe Milton in that arm. Everybody's drooling over Joe Milton. How did that look?
Yeah.
Right? Faison Brandon. The other thing is, what's to say LSU or Miami or Notre Dame doesn't come in this offseason and say, we're going to make you the first $10 million a year quarterback?
Yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah.
So you cannot put all your eggs in that basket. You have to do what you got to do this year. And if he doesn't want to come in here and compete, if you find something in McIntyre or Merklinger, great. That's the way I would look at it. And he can either come in here and compete, or he can go somewhere else, chicken out. That's how I would just handle it with my guys. In terms of judging it this season, I agree with you. It throws a wrench into everything because it's amazing. We did the show Sunday, and a lot of people were mad that we dared to point out that UCLA had seen Aguilar. And they looked at it and said, boy, it's tough to change quarterbacks in the portal. Go get Nico.
Mm-hmm.
We would rather have Nico than Aguilar. Now, I don't know. They may not know what they're getting.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But they're also still looking at UCLA's offense last year, right, with Eric Bieniemy. And it's like completely different. Tino Sinceri and that Indiana offense was a top 10, top 15 offense. Like, this is very different. You can't look at the UCLA numbers from a year ago. This is a completely different, simplified offense.
No, I'm just saying that they looked at Aguilar and they looked at Nico and they wanted Nico.
Yeah.
So I don't know how everybody here is like, oh, it's an upgrade. No, and that could turn out to be. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows how he's going to play? It may be spectacular. But, I mean, nobody thought when Hendon Hooker took over from Joe Milton, nobody was sitting there going, thank gosh, we're sitting down this guy that can throw at 150 yards, and we're bringing in this 3-star from Virginia Tech who never did much there. Nobody was cheering that. So maybe Aguilar comes in and surprises us all. In terms of him throwing picks, it is worrisome, but I will say Justin Hamilton was on our show a few years ago, and Justin was the defensive coordinator at Virginia Tech. He had been blown up with that staff, so he was in town, and we got him on our show. And having been at Virginia Tech with Hendon Hooker, I was asking him. I told him, I said, look, man, this guy's throwing 2 interceptions. It's unbelievable. 3 interceptions. That's it for the year. What an amazing job. And he's like, it's the system. I said, well, come on. But you got to give this guy not a tip ball. No, he said, it's the system. The system. And if you go back and look at Heupel's numbers, he's never had a quarterback throw double-digit interceptions.
Yeah.
Never. So I think the system should help Aguilar here cut down on his interception numbers. We'll see, because
But it requires the quarterback to stay within the system,
I
right?
agree.
Like that's part of what made Hendon so
know
great
what
was
to
Hendon
do.
was so good at being exactly what Heupel wanted in the pocket. Like one read go, like, hey, he was a machine. Like Hendon Hooker was a machine. This kid is more of a, run around and make something out of nothing. And we haven't really seen that work here under Heupel.
No, but I don't know. It still could work is all I'm saying. I think it's a downgrade, and that made everybody mad because they've convinced themselves that this is an upgrade going from Nico.
Well, it's also a downgrade because he's got 2 months. Like he might not be here till mid-June with the court. Like it's just not.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday I was like, "Do you not think he's studying the playbook now?" I was like, "Great, he's studying the playbook. He'll have had it for 3 months before the season starts." Here's the bigger deal.
That's 3 offenses in like 6 months. That's 3 in 6 months.
He's got to learn the offense.
Yeah.
He's got to learn the offensive line. And he's got to learn his receivers.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Sterling Hinton about that, and he's like, "That's tougher. That's tougher than learning the offense."
Yep.
But if you're also going to be the team leader, the vocal leader, get on my page. Get on the same page with me. Do this, do that. As Sterling put it, he's got to learn what wrong is in this offense before he can tell somebody else they're wrong. So all that has to be worked into it. That's why if I'm looking at this as 1994. Everybody will be mad if you went 8-4 this year. I think that'd be a hell of a year if you go 8-4.
I think so too. I think 8-4 is what you want. I mean, 9-3 is perfect scenario, but 8-4 should be celebrated. Like you did it. Good job. You made it through a crazy year. Like run with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think 8-4s would be a good year, but that's what you were in 94.
Yeah.
When you had Jerry Colquitt go down seven plays in, and I know some of your viewers don't remember 94, but 7 plays into the season, Jerry Colquitt, your starting quarterback, goes down. And you have to go to Todd Helton because your 2 freshmen aren't ready. And for the next few games, you're rotating Helton with Peyton Manning with Brandon Stewart. And then finally Helton's like, "I took one too many hits. I got a baseball career to preserve." Then it becomes Manning and Brandon Stewart. And at a Florida game, the fans booed when Peyton Manning came onto the field because they wanted Stewart because he could run around. They were used to the Heath Schuler. Everybody loves a running quarterback. Then eventually Manning grabs the job. And eventually, once he grabbed the job, he got better and better and better. His final game in a bowl game, he looked spectacular. And you had glimpses of, this kid's going to be special. Well, if you look at it and go, "Nah, it's an 8-4 year," you're missing the big picture. That was a launching pad year is what that was. That was a rebuild because of the circumstances, and you could look at it the same way. That's how I would handle this year. To me, Aguilar isn't your starting quarterback. You got a 3-man competition. I wouldn't hesitate to play 2 of them or 3 of them this year, depending on how it goes, to find my guy. You're also going to try and develop an offensive line with 4 new starters. You're trying to find out if these 2 hotshot receivers are actually hotshot receivers in terms of Staley and Matthews. If you're humming at the end of the year and you found a guy, but you're only 7-5 or 8-4, but it looks like the pieces are there. Oh, Lance Hurd does look like a guy we should give this money to. Okay, David Sanders. Now I'm going to guess he's not going to look great in September. That's my guess. But if you're seeing in November that David Sanders starting, it's like, okay, now I see why he's a 5-star. I'm feeling good about that at year's end. That's the way I would look at it. But I know that is not how this fan base is going to look at it. This fan base is simply looking, they're waiting. They're sitting there. Okay. He lost a game, so we're closer to firing him. Oh, another loss. Let's fire him. I know that, and a lot of fan bases are like that. But I would think that after the nightmare this one's been through, I wouldn't go into this season hoping to make a coaching change. But a lot of people do. They enjoy that side of it more than they do watching the football games. I think that this offense in general hasn't been as good the last 2 years, and I think it's due to quarterback accuracy. That's the biggest thing for me is I think you've seen – here's the deal. How many times did either A, Nico hit a guy in the hands and he dropped it downfield, or B, he overshot a guy? Let's say you connect on 2 more of those a game, put 14 more points on the board. That's a whole different year last year. So I'm not so sure the offense is broken as much as it is you just need an accurate guy who's willing to play within the system. I don't know that Nico – I think he was probably too risk-averse last year. You're probably going to go to the other end of that with Aguilar in there. Yeah. Somewhere between those two.
Maybe Merck too. I mean, all those guys, they seem more all over the place.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah, but to me, I'll give Heupel credit. The offense didn't look good. You mentioned it. He won with defense. most offensive coaches never win with defense. They don't allow it. Go back to 2 years ago when he's first realizing this offense isn't what it needs to be under Milton, and they started winning games with defense. I went on my show and was saying, you've got to stop going on fourth down on your own end of the field. Your offense isn't good enough this year. If you're going to win with defense, knock that off. You have to lean on your defense. Stop thinking like an offensive coach. He did. He did. That's amazing. Most of these coaches can't do that. Most of these coaches refuse to do that. Example, Jeremy Pruitt, when in doubt, pull in the reins and we're going to win with my defense. Mark Stoops, you could have an NFL talent at quarterback, but at the end of a game, if it's close, he ain't going for it. He's like, wait, let's be cautious. Let my defense win it. Most offensive coaches, we're going to win it with my offense. I was impressed that Heupel, yes, his offense wasn't as good. So, yeah, that's an X. But I give him a check mark for saying, I'm going to adjust. You took away my jab, but I'm going to come at you with this uppercut. All right, that's a little different. I give him credit for that. So we'll see. But to me, winning with defense when you're an offensive coach, there aren't a lot of guys. Point to me the number of guys who do that. I'm not saying that he's Steve Spurrier or Nick Saban, but those are guys who Saban was a defensive guy, didn't like the up-tempo offense. What did he do? Game changed. He went to the up-tempo offense. Steve Spurrier, everything's open it up, throw the ball all over the yard. He gets to South Carolina. SEC DBs are better now the second time around when he's in the league. People are putting better athletes on defense than they were in the 90s. So what's he do? He goes to this same zone read offense that everybody else is using, and he somehow makes an SEC title game twice. Those are the kinds of coaches who stand out. So I'll give Heupel credit for the last year saying, okay, we're not winning with offense. I'm not only just going to win with defense, I'm going to play conservatively, which he does not want to do. As a quarterback, those guys want to throw the ball, but he's going at it conservatively. He's going at it to win it a different way. That's not a negative in my mind. That's a positive. Again, that's another reason to see how he can develop. And maybe at some point out there, he hits the wall and it's like, okay, he just can't get past this level. There's a ceiling over him. But I don't think you're there yet. And again, I see reasons. I did see the 11-2. I did see what this offense looks like with the right quarterback and right receivers when it's humming. I did see him win with defense. There are reasons there to like what's coming and to stick with it and to give it a little bit more time as opposed to, I see the negatives, fire him. And I'm afraid that's where most people go in this conference, because now you do look at Kirby Smart and everybody's like, see, it's easy. It's easy. Blow up our coach. Go get us a Kirby Smart. Never mind that 99% of the schools who do that don't find their Kirby Smart.
I agree. I like it. John Pennington, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over at Sports Source and the Sports Source Digital Network this week?
Yeah, I'm trying this week. We'll put up tons of content we do every week. The digital network, we do the Sunday show, and we've been doing that since 2003. 90 minutes every Sunday from 11 to 12:30. I usually never have fewer than 5 or 6 people on there. We're like double the size of a normal show. We're 90 minutes, so we're double the length of most shows around here. We're year round, so that's a unique perspective. I try and bring as many different voices into that show as I can. We also have the Sports Source Saturday Kickoff now, 11 to noon every Saturday, which is kind of a weekend sports wrap-up show. And a lot of it is called from the Sports Source Digital Network, where we are putting up, we've been up for 3 months as of today. Today's our 3rd month. We put up 160 videos, and it's all kinds of everything from outdoor shows to football shows to one-on-one interviews to fun history shows where we talk about we count down the 6. Last week was the 6 biggest turncoats in Tennessee sports history with John Wilkerson and myself every week. So we got hardball, for example. If you like Tennessee baseball, we got 3 VFLs that come in there, and I get out of the way. There is no host. It's just those 3 guys talking ball. So it's a different type of channel that we're experimenting right now, and we invite people to go check out the Sports Source Digital Network.
I love it. John Pennington, thank you as always for the time. I greatly appreciate it. Go subscribe to the Sports Source if you are not already, and we'll have to check back in again soon, my friend.
Thank you, Chase. I appreciate it. We got to get you over there.
Oh, let me know. I'm close by. Let me know, John Pennington.
We'll do it.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.